Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine. I interview leaders, experts and business professionals from around the world who are bringing leadership principles and know-how into the digitally driven 21st century workplace, with focus firmly on the how-to rather than the what. Each episode is in aid of a charity chosen by my guests, and since 2020, we've made donations to over 80 global and local causes. Welcome to this episode of the Rethink Leadership podcast with my guests Ivanna Mikhailovna Rosendal and Katrine Carlsson Sejr. Ivanna was born in 1987 in eastern Ukraine and grew up amidst the instability of the post-Soviet collapse, which taught her the importance of adapting and seeking better ways to do things. This also led Ivanna to a career in behavioural economics and life sciences, and as a filmmaker writing and directing the short film The Other Side about the impact of war in families with both Ukrainian and Russian roots. And Katrine, known as AK, is a leader of teams specialising in organisational development and transformation. She's often been frustrated by the oversimplified advice in business literature, and has made it her ambition to bring more reality into the leadership and workforce discussions. Together, Ivanna and AK have published the Amazon bestseller Maneuvering Monday and host the Maneuvering Monday podcast, where experts and thought leaders share insights, experience, and concrete tactics to tackle the challenges inspired by the book's main character and dilemmas. We spend our time today discussing what the book is all about, how it relates to the workplace of today and our lives outside it, and how we can all get better at navigating our way through our day-to-day challenges, wherever they may be. This episode is in aid of Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, to which we've made a donation as a thank you to AK and Ivanna for joining us. Welcome, everybody, to the Rethink Leadership podcast with my guests, Katrine and Ivanna. Thank you both for joining me. Ivanna and AK, who I will now refer to you as, I'm going to ask you both to introduce yourselves, your business, and your purpose as a leader today. AK, let me start with you.
Yeah, hi, I'm AK, which is short for Katrine. And my background is actually within corporate communication, and then I have later specialized in organizational change management and transformation. And I am a leader of teams working with the human side of change in a digital context. And then Ivanna and I do the Maneuvering Monday project in our free time. And in this project, I'm a producer, meaning I have produced the podcast and other content. I have helped edit the book and made the audiobook. And just one final note, my purpose with Maneuvering Monday, I think, is around showing how life in organizations is messy and imperfect, and try to give some inspiration for how to tackle this with Ivanna, but also with a lot of other brilliant people in our Maneuvering Monday podcast.
Thank you for that, AK. And a couple of interesting things immediately as you started there around the digital world and the need to be very human-centered into that world. And it's very imperfect because it's uncertain, unpredictable, and we're all caught up in it as well. So absolutely at the heart of what we're doing today. Ivanna, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. My name is Ivanna Rosendal, and I'll start with my purpose. My purpose is to reinvent the life sciences industry to make sure that we get medicine to as we can. And I believe that like one of the biggest cornerstones for how we do that is actually making sure that our organizations are well run. There are a lot of things that we can still do in our industry to make sure that we understand how things fit together, and also like the human aspect of being an organization often gets forgotten when we think about the products that we produce, when we think about the regulations that we face, and also often we experience this organizational theater that emerges that is out of sync with reality that is in fact very human. And that's why for me, that's what Maneuvering Monday is about, is making sure that we kind of showcase, well, this is how it actually is an organization. It's messy, it's unpredictable, things change all the time, and all we can do is maneuver the best we can.
Yeah, and you mentioned the first thing you mentioned about our organizations being well run. And I think we have to recognize that leaders are humans too.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of a leadership crisis. This is not a crisis for just employees or the rest of the workforce. We do have some issues at the top, and leaders need help too. You both mentioned your new book. It's excellent. It's called Maneuvering Monday, and it's for anybody trying to make work better. And as you so rightly said, one imperfect step at a time. So, Ivanna, as you've started on that, let me bring you back into that and tell us what the book's about and why you both wrote it.
Absolutely. So we wrote this book to. It's a fictional story about a ed tech company where they experience a lot of employees resigning all of a sudden, and the HR manager is tasked with solving this retention crisis. And that leads her to the depths of the engineering departments, but also the top layers, the strategical top layers, and she kind of finds all the dysfunction in the organization. And I will not disclose what happens in the end, but it's we give no solutions really. It is not a business fable; it is a work fiction. Uh, we do kind of introduce this typical character of a wise person who potentially looks like they have all the answers, but in fact, it's a tease. There are no answers. We all have to
Mm.
figure it out for ourselves.
That is really beautifully put, and I like it as a piece of work fiction. But we're all trying to work this out, and maybe that wise person is a guide, but it doesn't give us the answer, right? So, as those people are reading the book, AK, if I can bring you in on this, what are the insights and potentially the tools coming out of it that those reading either can expect or create themselves? And what are the benefits if they start to implement some of this?
Mm. So I think just to start, as Ivana said, we did want to write something that would reflect the reality of organizations that are filled with human beings and behaviors and personal agendas and all these things that make business leadership frameworks really hard to follow, because when you sit on a Tuesday morning and you try to implement something you learned on a course, it just meets reality and it's so hard. And what we're hoping to do with this book is that people can read it and recognize some of the challenges maybe and dysfunctions from their own work life, and getting inspired by the story regarding how to approach it, and kind of, as Ivana said, provide some of those perspectives into people work lives, and maybe tactics to try to make work a little bit better. Because we do spend a lot of time at work, and we don't want people to be miserable there. So we think it's a good purpose that people try to make work better, as you also said. And I think the themes in the book, where I think people can pick up some tools or some ideas at least, is around experiencing resistance and pushback from people, but instead of getting annoyed, trying to really involve these people and listen to what they say, not being afraid to go into the conflicts, not being afraid to try some things to try to change what doesn't work. And I think what the main character does well is that she's good at listening to the experts and to involving people in designing the system of the organization. But also, I think it's about really checking yourself as a leader and seeing how you maybe contribute to the problem instead of helping to solve it. And that's also something our main characters experience, that there's a lot of dysfunction in the leadership teams that are trying to change how the people work in the organization. But before they can get people to do that, they have to actually learn how to work together themselves. So I think those are some of the insights that people can hopefully get.
And it sounds like that as we read it, as we put ourselves in the shoes of the observer, if you like, here,
Mm.
this is when we can start to interpret the responses that the guide gets and that we all get throughout it and create our own tools for our own situations. Is that about
Mm.
right?
Exactly.
Hmm. Um, and you've both talked about the balance within this, because at the same time within the book we're trying to get the balance in everything, the balance in what's happening at work, but we've got a life outside. And this may be a little bit left field for those tuning in, but it's really important to demonstrate that we're all juggling with a lot at the moment, whether it's in life, whether it's at work, whether it's elsewhere. And Ivana, you also wrote and produced a short film called The Other Side, which takes a microscope into the Ukraine-Russia war. And perhaps you can tell us about that and the message you wanted to convey, and how that's informed your journey, either through Maneuvering Monday or as you both work together.
No, absolutely. And it's a great transition from like these left field projects that all kind of fit together, because in Maneuvering Monday, like the war in Ukraine also features as like a constant backdrop for some of the main events in the book. And for me, it is of great significance because I am originally from Ukraine. I'm from the eastern part where right now the conflict is going strong. So like ever since the war started, I have been attempting to deal with an uncertain reality and trying to make sense of it all. So where in Maneuvering Monday is kind of the backdrop as experienced in a country that is not Ukraine. Um, the other side, the short film tries to deal with like one of the major conflicts in that whole space, which is the generational conflict between people who like have never experienced Ukraine unified with Russia and the Soviet Union, and people who grew up in that reality. Like the divide between the two generations runs very deep, and you can see, like in the approval ratings of different regimes, there's a big generational difference. And for me, I tried to create a film that would both convey what is some of that conflict about, what are the assumptions that the two generations have, but also how can they actually still connect. Because in the film, it's a story about a young woman who has fled Ukraine and is living in Scandinavia. And she is estranged from her father, who is heavily pro Russian. And yet, still, every year on her birthday, they have this beautiful ritual where each of them sits down on each side of the Baltic Sea and eat the same cake. And it's really been impactful when people who understand the conflicts have watched the film and how they have responded to like this um, understanding the estrangement, but also understanding the connection, and that it is still possible, even when we cannot speak with words, we can still find ways that make us feel connected to each other. And that's what that film was about.
Yeah, that deep connection, and ultimately it goes back actually a lot of what we said from the very get-go here, which is that human center and
Yes.
and back to humanity, whether it's in your life, whether it's in a war zone, whether it's in work, whatever. And I'm sure that has parallels in Gaza, in Africa, and all of these other places as well. And what you it was quite interesting, of course, is that generational divide is something that we talk about a lot in business too.
Yes.
Not to the same extent that you're talking about. I'm not trying to shoehorn this in, but it's quite obvious that this perception of one generation versus another and how things are shifting around us in life and at work. And to come back to what you both said, we are living and working in an imperfect world. So maybe I can bring AK back into this here. And perhaps those who are listening are saying, you know what, I really need to get that balance back between my busy work life, outside it, all of those other things that are kind of hitting, all of the moving parts I'm trying to manage. So, what are kind of 2 or 3 key pieces of advice you can offer from your experience and that of your work with Ivanna?
Yeah, thank you. I really think this is something I have been struggling with a lot myself. So I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer it, but I am a person who knows the struggle. And um, and I think that in my first years as a leader, honestly, I spent most of my time at work, mostly because I just love work so much. But I actually got the feedback from my employees that once I learned how to get the balance, I became a better leader. Once work was no longer everything in my life, they actually liked my leadership style more. And I think that letting go of that control and trusting that my employees would do great without me there all the time made me a better leader. But it was really hard, honestly, for me. But I think this idea of bringing more of my full self to work, taking some time also to connect as human beings, made it easier to achieve that balance, because now my employees know the names of my children, I know theirs. We can help and support each other if one needs to leave early one day, for instance. And I think in my partnership with Ivanna, this is one of the core agreements that we made from the beginning, that we do this next to our day job. We always had a rule that our family comes first, meaning that if our children need to be part of a meeting, or if we need to log off a call to go to them, that's what we do. That's completely okay. I've had 2 babies during the time we've worked on Maneuvering Monday, not at the same time, but with 2 years apart. And Ivanna has been so great at being understanding and taking more of the load of the work during the times when I just had the babies. And I think this expectations alignment was really important for us up front. Yeah, I don't know, Ivanna, if you have anything to add.
No, I completely agree. Like, also just the fact that for us as a creative collective, we also include our children and we include our families at the book launch. Like, our partners and kids had roles to play, even though some of the roles were just hanging out with the balloons. Uh, but still, like, understanding that when we do something extraordinary, like we bring our our whole selves in, and I think that made the book and our project much better than if we had tried to like stay strictly professional.
Mm. And I think also just showing our children that work can also be really fun, and hopefully it should be. I hope that can be I hope to be a role model for my daughters, that they see how much I love what I do, and they get to also enjoy being part of it when it makes sense.
Yeah. If the best thing that happened after our book launch events, which we held in Copenhagen a little while back, is that my youngest daughter, who loves to draw comic books, she's 9. She told me, "You know what, mommy? One day this will be my book launch." And for me, I was just like, "Oh, that is that is amazing." But also, I was just so proud that she was proud of me, but also that she could see that there's a pathway for her creativity to come to flourish at some point.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very personal to me too. One of my book launches, I had my daughter there too, and it was probably the first time she saw me, and she's in her 20s at this point. So it's like, it's a little bit slightly different, but the first time she'd really seen me in a work context, and I think it really changed her mindset a little bit. And talked about, and my co-author was also a lady called Rochelle, and she was really inspired by Rochelle, probably more than me, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I completely get that. So much actually just to unpack from what you both said there. That was really interesting to listen to you both. You talked about that movement from control to letting go to empowerment, AK, bringing your full self, and that just makes things a bit more authentic. We talk about authenticity, doesn't it? But it feels better for you, never mind anybody else, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that they know the business you and the life you, more understanding overall. And I also like what you talked about, AK, about having that expectations alignment around the people that we work with. What goes, what doesn't, how we need to be more understanding. And I think that's great role modeling, not just for our children, but also for our teams and employees. Agree?
Agreed. Yeah. And their children.
Yes, exactly. Hooray. So I'm going to put you both on the spot as business leaders now, and bring in what you've talked about and what you're writing about in Maneuvering Monday into this, and take us ahead. The pace of change is huge. We know that speed is a key competitive play for anybody right now, with the speed of digital, etc. So as you look ahead to the 2030s and the continuing rapid growth, and how that it's impacting the workforce, our digital infrastructures, how we work, but also our leadership skills, what's going to be important in order to navigate our way through that as high performing, more balanced people at all levels? Maybe I come to you first, Ivanna.
Absolutely. I would say that something extremely personal translate both into leadership and our organizations, and that is like emotional maturity. the ability to understand and recognize what am I feeling right now, and what can I do about it? How can I communicate what my experience is to the proper people, and how can I both like take responsibility for my own feelings, um, and but change reality to the better based on what I'm experiencing, or potentially kind of soothe myself so that I can just get on with things without negative impact on others. Because the ability to manage ourselves, especially as a leader, it becomes more and more important when uncertainty grows. Because then we have fewer of those knee-jerk reactions where we suddenly kind of make life way worse for everybody. As a person in a position of power, we can make life so much worse if we don't take on the responsibility that it actually takes to manage ourselves.
And it's putting emotional intelligence right at the heart of things again, isn't it? And I know a piece of research that came through over the last year indicates that empathy is the number one lead from employees of their leaders, of which is at the heart of emotional intelligence. But as to your point, Ivanna, you need that self-awareness and self-regulation first.
Yes.
Know yourself first, and then get to know others much more deeply and on a more empathetic level. And that really unlocks some great leadership and great leadership balance, perhaps. AK, what can you add to that?
I just think that was a really great example of one of the themes of this call today, which is the human aspect of work, and I think that will just continue to be so critical. Also, as we go into this age of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and starting to rely more on tech, I think leadership becomes so important to demonstrate, as you said, the authenticity. Trying to focus on the human behavior, the behavioral part when we design transformations, because we do need the human interaction. I don't think that the machine learning or AI can replace that. I think sometimes friction is important for teams to bond, connect, and to have that creativity together. And I don't think that that digital things can replace that. So I would also say, yeah, the human factor is key.
Well, that's right. And in fact, if we've learned anything from digital, is that agile mindset, isn't it? And how that becomes a very human-centered approach for how we collaborate, communicate, and I like the way that you put it, just a bit of friction to slow down before we speed up, so that we know how that we can connect together and work together within that. Um, Look, it's been an absolutely great conversation with you both, and I could talk a lot more, and I know we could go much deeper here into the parts of the book, but sadly we don't have much more time for this. So I'm going to leave it to our audience and yourselves to connect on this. So please, can you let me know, Ivanna, if you could let me know, how does our audience find out more, and how do they get hold of the book? And then I'm going to come back to Anna, to AK.
Absolutely. So a good place to go is maneuveringmonday.com. And Maneuvering Monday is available, well, in most bookstores, both as a paperback, an ebook, and soon as an audiobook. And a good place to connect with either me or AK's LinkedIn. You can find me by searching for Ivanna Rosendal.
And AK, once they connect with you both, how can you both help some of those leaders or individuals who are tuning in with the work that you do?
Well, we would of course always love to share our perspectives if anyone would like to discuss something in their current life. We do also have the Maneuvering Monday podcast, and we've had a lot of great experience with inviting people in to discuss maybe a work dilemma, or to talk about, the story of Maneuvering Monday using experience from our guest speakers. So people are also always very welcome to contact us if they think they have some relevant perspectives to share, or they would like our take on a challenge or dysfunction in their company.
Oh, that's an excellent call to action. Please do get in touch with them both. Ivanna, AK, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine. Please like, comment and support us on your favourite platform, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.